see everybody. Or it was good to see you when the lights were on. Okay, that's on. You ready? Okay. Everybody sit down. Betty, we're going to wait for you.
Oh, you didn't have to.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, I'm ready.
Thank you. Here we go. And as we attune ourselves to the sound of the heart bowl, with our hearts wide open, we remember the truth of who we are, the truth of the presence of the divine that dwells in, through, and as all things, that is the essence of all, is the element of all, is the power and the profoundness of it all. Far beyond our understanding, there is something so absolute, so complete, that we only seek to understand it. Yet it is right here in the midst. It is the essence of who and what we are. It is divine, it is perfect, it is complete, it is infinite. And all that is dwells within it. So as we dwell within it, we claim right now the authority to speak as that one. And I know that we come together to do good work, to go into the depths of understanding and the heights of revelation, to see who we are, to know who we are, to be who we are. And I know our time together is well spent, that we laugh and we smile and we awaken one another to that divine presence. So only good can come to us, right here and right now, as always, because this is the truth of who we are. And we let it be filled with gratitude and love, knowing this truth. We let it be, and so it is.
And so it is.
Thank you, that was lovely. Sometimes I chime this as I'm walking out of my office at the end of the day. It kind of sends me off in a good way. So Kate, would you flip at least one of those lights back on the room? Or Judith, whichever you wants to do it. So last week, we had our second class, and didn't we? Yes, it was our second class, and we talked about this idea of the divine presence. And there were a couple of things that I shared that I would like to review with you. Remember those two ideas? God is all and all is in God. Does anyone remember the names of those? Which one's pantheism?
Oh, okay.
That is correct, that's pantheism. What's the other one? Panentheism, right. What is the, and that's the all is in God. Which are we? You can choose whichever you want. I can't make you believe a certain thing, but to me, it just seems that if you think about those two concepts, you really get closer to an infinite if you go with the second one. Because no, even though we cannot possibly measure the physical universe from where we are, you know, we can't really define its final characteristics. We know there's something more going on. So we know that whatever this thing God, you know, God is such a limiting word, but it's the word that so many of us use, and I'm going to use it a lot today, has no limits. Therefore, it can't be simply physical. Everything physical can be in it, but it apparently is more than that. So we seek that understanding always, to go deeply into that idea of what is the divine. And that was our entire conversation last week. And I thought it was a good conversation. I enjoy doing that. I encourage you never to be satisfied with your words, never to go into a routine of saying the same words in your first step. Did anyone come up with the exercise at the end, a first step, a recognition step that you think was particularly interesting that you'd like to share with us? Did you all do the exercise at the end of that chapter? Sure you did. Oh, excellent. Breezy.
Well, I'm not a word person, and so mine is not words, mine's
You know,
visual.
really it is. That's where you go. Even when you're saying the words, if you can, not everybody is strongly visual, but if you can, when you're speaking the words of the recognition, try to stretch in your visualizing. And you know, not everybody's visual, but if you can, do that. And if you can't, you know, see if you can feel it beyond the words. You know, one of those two things really will help you stretch and stay in that growing mode of somehow being more aware of this presence than you were before. Okay, so you're right. It doesn't have to be about words, but that's what we use.
Well, I can describe it if you want.
Give it a go.
No specific, you know, it's, you know how when you look out in the universe, you see all the stars and stuff like that? And then when you look through a microscope, it pretty much looks the same. So mine's a circular thing going back and forth between the two. To
Okay,
encompass it all.
that's lovely. Good. And if you can do that in your treatment, you're doing a recognition step. Yeah, good for you. Anybody else? Any other thoughts? Well, we have a musician in our movement. He's been here actually. His name's Daniel Namot. Yeah, and he wrote a song, and it's kind of his song now. Everyone knows this as Daniel's song. You've heard it because Olympia sometimes sings it on Sunday morning. But think of this in terms as an elaborate expression of recognition. It's called One Power. We're just going to listen to Daniel sing it to us. Boy's got some range. Any impressions hearing this? Yes?
Is he the one that wrote Get Ready My Star?
Yeah.
How did you pronounce his last name?
Neymar. So the lyrics that you just heard, the words, any impressions come from all that?
I
Yes?
like goosebumps.
Yeah, goosebumps, I do too, every time I hear it, yeah. I love the way he goes from something very, very finite and very present before an individual to the boundlessness of space and then small and then, you know, and back and forth to recognize that space is so relative, but the presence of the divine is there completely everywhere. So that's a wonderful little exercise to remember, that you can't encapsulate this, but you can know it enough to be in a space to have a relationship, even though you can't possibly know it all. And that's good. That's plenty at any moment. So keep that inquiry of the divine alive in you as you do step one. Okay? That's what I want you to know. Yay. So that's step one, recognition. Step two, what do we call that? I call it identification. Many people in our movement prefer to call it unification. And Holmes called it both. So he even called it declaration. But the reason that I like identification is that I've just, done my best to reach out in my mind and encapsulate some sense of this infinite, impossible to understand thing. And now I want to be it. I identify as it. Unification, it does work. I mean, if you study the word, it's okay. It does work. But it also has this side effect to me that says, I'm trying to unify or connect with the divine. I can't. I already am.
Yeah.
I am, so how can I do that? And what the argument I get from a lot of my colleagues is, you're unifying in mind. You're recognizing that unity of yourself within that. Okay, that's great. But I do it better. I like it better with identification. I want to identify as that. Not with it. Don't ever identify with the divine. Identify as it.
I agree with you, when you're talking about unification, that's almost an idea that there's duality and you're trying to bring them together.
Your mind goes there, even though I've been told that's not the intention of the word.
Something that's already one.
Yeah, and I hear people I unify my mind with the divine. How do you do that? How are you not? It's like, let's just get what's already happening. And that's the thing about treatment. You're not making anything happen. You're simply recognizing what is. The whole thing is a recognition process. But the second step is recognizing that you and the divine are one. So our exploration tonight is about that. How does that work? What is it that we can do with that? Because on the surface, if you walk around saying you are God, they will lock you up. Because that sounds like, you've got an identity issue. But if you begin by knowing that it's not just you, it's all. Everything is in this infinite presence. Everything is included. Nothing is outside of it. Nothing can be. Including me, including you. And it's simply a recognition that that's already so. But it's a powerful recognition, And as I say, the whole thing of doing spiritual mind treatment is about recognizing this divine presence as best we can, recognizing that we are that presence. But what are the elements of being that presence that we can use? I think where we have to come to it is this idea that we have two parts of our thinking. In one way, we are intuitive, and in one way, we have a rational mind. Our rational mind can't understand the idea of being God. It makes no sense. The rational mind lives in a duplicitous, three-dimensional world, where separation is just a natural thing to understand. Our intuitive mind, however, can move us into a greater understanding. And if I were to give a psychological test to all of you on whether you're intuitive or sensate, which is Sensate being someone who relates to life in that rational way, in the physical dimensions, and sees life according to those ideas. Not that we don't do both, we all do both. But we have a preference. We are more comfortable being intuitives, or we are more comfortable being sensates. 75% of the people in the world are sensates. 25% are intuitives. Intuitives are drawn to this teaching because it is so abstract. It is, it's abstract. And people who are generally sensates have a real hard time, many times. I don't want to say everybody, but many people who are sensates go, what? What are you talking about? Now, if you look at traditional Christianity or Judeo-Christian design, it's very sensate. The whole story of everything about the Hebrew people has so many stories that include things. Lamps, fleece, parting of waters, all these physical stories. You know, there's not, that's how they built that whole thing. Even the stories of Jesus, the idea of him being born in a manger, so important in that story, about him being executed on a cross. It's all, and then his physical presence after his resurrection, it's all sensate stuff. The idea that somehow people are cleansed by the blood of Jesus is so sensate. It works beautifully in the mind of a sensate to have those stories and those images to work with. We have none of that. Ours is really abstract. Ours is, and the intuitive mind can get what we're doing. In all the years that I've taught practitioners, and we've probably over the years had about 100 practitioners, we had one sensate, and they left. What do you want to say?
I was just going to say that, wouldn't that be also compared to like right brain and left brain as far as the logic?
One might say, yeah, one might say that right brain is more intuitive and the left brain is the more rational. And all of us have two sides to our brain, so it's not like we're left out of anything, but developing this idea of intuition and being intuitive. May talked about some of that on Sunday. So that's all part, and I believe, even though not everybody, especially in a neuro-linguistic program, agrees with me, but I think that can be developed. I think you can open up to that. Joey?
Yeah, I was going to ask, is it something like programming, neurolinguistics, like as you're a child, or your environment, and being brought up in church and stuff? Is that, or is it all just? Could we just?
I think their preferences. The way I was always taught in that arena is that it's a preference. It's like if you're right-handed, you can write your name with your left hand. It's not pretty, but you can do it. And if you did it regularly, it would get better. So you just, those kinds of things are preferences. They will come easier or more natural. But you can develop it however you want. So this is an intuitive teaching. It just is. It's an abstract teaching. We talk about things that don't have form. You know, we draw a design, a circle, and put some lines and on it, and we explain it that way. And I'm telling you, there's lots of people in the world who look at that and go, "What the devil are you talking about?" So if you're getting it, congratulations. Yes, Mark.
So with the rational mind, like I find it seems to me it's very scientific in its principles.
Yes.
Like energy, and so I would think scientists would be like, oh yeah. But then applying it is where that, I think, intuitive
Yes,
part
you're
comes.
absolutely right. And there are a lot of people that actually understand the concepts that we teach as far as they can give them back to you. But you have to get them to a place where they're applicable, where you can actually apply them to your life. And that's one thing that spiritual mind treatment does. Understanding the steps is like understanding how the pieces on a chessboard move,
Right.
but not moving into the strategy of it. So we wanted to go beyond that into the strategy. Kate?
Holmes talks about inductive and deductive reasoning. So would you say that one of those is inductive and one of those is deductive?
Yeah, you could say that intuitive is an inductive process.
What about God is all or all is in God?
Well, I think it would be easier for someone with a rational mind to get the idea that all is God.
Is deductive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And that the idea that God is something greater than that takes a little extra abstract thinking
Right,
to get to. Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, so, what does it mean? Yes, remind me your name. I really want to know your guys' names.
Dakota.
Dakota, what a great name. Thank you, Dakota.
Sure. One of the things I think that is true for me is that even though I have, a penchant and a desire for that, the intuitive, I need to back it up
Mhm.
with the stories, with the application, and that we all do that, even science and
Nothing
I
wrong
mean,
with that. Oh, it's good.
well, because it doesn't, that is integrating our brain, our mind, our unification, because if we don't have the experience of it, if we're not applying it, if you're not actually doing it, then you can never get to that other place of identification,
Absolutely.
because you need the wisdom of that experience.
You know who Glenn Beck is? He's that conservative talk show host. When The Secret came out, he had somebody on who wanted to explain how that was all bogus. And I listened to it, and there's a part of me that wanted to go, you idiot. But I realized Glenn Beck is a sensei. He's a Mormon, and he thinks in those terms. So this idea that you can think something into your life is absurd to him, even though he's very successful in his part in the world. But that concept just totally doesn't work for him. So, actually for most people. You know, when we ask why aren't our churches overflowing with people? Because most people think we're nuts. You know, but you do have to have the rational mind and the intuitive mind to make this work. You're absolutely right.
Well, what is happening now with the realization from the physics people
Mhm.
that thought does produce?
Of course.
But has.
We were just going to wait for the physicists to figure that out.
But I mean, have you seen a difference in how other people are responding to it?
I don't think most people go that deeply into what physics offers.
Okay.
You know, we as a species, I don't think we kind of go through the iterations of physics. But certainly, some people do, and I've had great conversation with PhDs in physics. One thing I remember in a conversation so many years ago in Houston, Texas, I was at some kind of a party, and this guy from the university and I went into this conversation. I said, if anything was completely still, it would cease to exist, right? Right. Because motion is what makes time and space.
Right.
That's how it works. So you create these nebulae and molecules and atoms, and they're all moving. And not only are they all moving, but the universe is in this spiraling thing. You know, solar systems and galaxies are all moving. Everything's, and if anything absolutely stopped, it would cease to exist because it would defy time and space. Space and time are defined by motion. Judith.
I was reading today, the scientist, what's his name, Michiko Kaku?
I can't hear you.
Oh, the scientist, I think he's Michiko Kaku.
Uh-huh.
He created like the string physics or something. And he was talking about that he may have he may be now able to prove that there is a God with, I forget exactly what it was, but he's come onto this theory that he's created that is, he's like, I think I can prove it now, so he's really working on that.
And I think there are people in the world of science that continuously bump up against that and want to play with it. The God particle.
Right.
Right, there's always something
exactly.
where we're trying to bring those two together, which is good. We should try to bring them together. So I wish him well. Let's see what he comes up with. I know there have been people like that before, and I've gone, what?
Yeah.
Because theirs is all calculations.
Yeah, he was
and all.
talking about having, that he believes he can prove that there is an intelligence that guides the rules of the universe.
Good for him. I look forward to hearing about it.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about this idea of being God. The idea of being God is easier than it is not as easy as it sounds. Because there is something inside of most of us, I don't want to indict all of this, but I think most of us that tend to resist that a little bit. Because our rational mind says, if there is this divine presence and it's perfect, I cannot see my life as perfect. And we resist it, we hold back a little bit. So trust me, the second step is every bit as important as the first step. It relies on the first step, the recognition, but it has to exist and you have to go into it. Plenty of people go, yes, there it is, nothing but the divine. It is infinite and always present, and oh wow, that's not really who I am. And they resist that part. So really look at it and make yourself vulnerable in that second step. What can you say about you as the divine? It sounds boastful at times, but it's not. It's a point of creating authority in your life, because you're going to go into that third step. And you're going to proclaim something is so in your life. You're going to recognize something that you haven't yet seen with your senses. How do you do that? Well, you do it with the authority of the divine. But you can't say, I, with the authority of an outside God, apart from me, now I can do this. It has to be that you are that presence. And you have to accept your perfection. And I think we talked about perfection a little bit last week.
Yeah.
Perfection to me has nothing to do with your expectations being met. Perfection means that your consciousness, your belief structure, creates a perfect reflection through the law into your life. That's perfect. Doesn't mean you like it. Doesn't mean you consciously want it that way. But your life is a perfect reflection of your consciousness, without exception. And if you reject that, it's just going to make life harder. The trick is, accept that that's so, and then change your thinking. Change what you believe, and then you'll get a different result. What do you want to say, Drew?
Just that to invoke an outside source is not relying on that you are the same part
Exactly.
of it. You know, to evoke is just putting yourself there, and then like the intuitive, the crossover, you know, intuitive engineer. Oh, God, right.
I love it.
The crossover from trying to figure out how the clock works before you set it, and then go, that leap, that emotional leap, yeah, is just. I understand why some people go, "Oh, I'm good. I'll stay where I'm at."
Sure, it's a bold one. And I would suggest that every person that is in a monastery or that kind of reclusive environment is there to be aware of the presence and to find it within themselves. And they meditate and they do all kinds of process work to find that in them, not just to talk about it. And that's good, and I think it's wonderful that people do that with their lives. It's as good a way to spend your life as anything. And you don't have to go be reclusive to get this. You really don't. What do you want to say to it?
I was just going to say, it's, you know, when I first found all this stuff, it actually scared me.
Yeah,
I was just
that's
literally
good.
shaking. I was so scared. And this was a couple of years ago. And but it's amazing how life will put things in your life. Like Jim Carrey kind of has the same,
Right.
and he was one of my, all grown up, I mean, I loved him. I was like, oh my gosh, you know, so it set me down. And it was like, and it just, I keep getting justification for it, and then it was just plainly obvious. I was just like, oh my gosh, you know, duh. You know, finally it awakened me. And
Very nice.
but at first it scares you, or it did me, you know, coming from Christianity and
Right.
into, but
And I don't want to suggest to anyone here that we are the only ones that can be creative. Everyone is creative. Every Christian, every Jew, every Muslim, every follower of Krishna, everybody's creative. If you're in the human experience, you're creative. If you're an agnostic or you think there is no God, you're creative using the divine presence as your life. The thing is, though, that we're revealing something that I believe empowers us even more so. So that with us, it's not hit and miss on getting an outcome that we desire. We have a calculation, a formula for guaranteeing it is really where we're going. We guarantee it. If you set your intention that clearly, and you claim that divine essence as yourself, and you speak the word of what is so in your life, that's gonna show up. It's gonna, it just is. Yes, Dakota.
I think one of the other things that makes people afraid, and including myself, is that it does create complete responsibility and complete transparency, because when you truly embrace this, you can't hide who you are, because you are a perfect reflection of your conscious state. So whoever you are, however you're showing up in life, is who you are. And so I think that those two things combined, that full responsibility, that it is me and only me. It is not a circumstance, it is not something else. That comes up against, like, you know, some real resistance, because you want to blame something else.
Sure, and there's no blame involved. You can't go to blame. Blame doesn't work anymore.
And it's right there for everyone.
I've always called moving into this philosophy the loss of grace, because grace was, they did it to me, as though that's the truth, and we live in that illusion, and then all of a sudden, oh, it's all about me. Yeah, there's no need for grace there. It's just, there it is.
But there is, because we have to have grace with ourselves.
Yeah.
That brutal honesty.
Yeah, yeah. But it's beautiful, rather than going, you mean, should I be blamed for all the bad things that happen in my life? No, all those things that happen in your life are a reflection of your consciousness. Now that you know that, now you get to create in your life things according to your beliefs, so you start working on your belief system. I actually, for my book, The Sorry Syndrome, which is going to be published soon, I actually wrote a piece of it on Monday, and it occurred to me that there's a connection between, or there's a similarity between the DNA in our cells and our belief system, in that it is a series of things, a series of connections, series of relationships, these beliefs that we collect, that you could see them in a spiraling helix, that we put it all together. The difference between DNA and our belief system is, it's really easy to change your belief system once you accept that you can. When you think you can, it's as rigid as a double helix. That no, that can't. In fact, that's not true. That DNA actually can change within a human being. But the truth is that all the information that is in a strand of DNA is just like the information in your belief system, and it informs everything. It informs everything in your life. You know, if you have a bruise or a tear or a break or a cut or anything, it's that information in your DNA that repairs your cells, that knows how to put it back the way it was. That's brilliant. Your belief system works the same way. Whatever shows up in your life, you apply your belief system to it to get through it. Now, if our belief system has things that don't work in it anymore, it's sort of like having something in your DNA that's not functioning the way it should logically function. So you get something that morphs to something we don't really want. So but our belief system is much more fluid. We can go in there and say, you know, I used to believe that. I don't believe that anymore. This is what I believe. And this new thing that I believe now informs my life. And when things come up, I go, nah, that doesn't work that way anymore. This is the way it is. And we move forward with a different outcome. It's just a different outcome because we've changed the basic alignment of our belief system so that old stuff that used to happen just won't happen anymore. Armander.
I was just thinking, just kind of reflecting back about how, like, certain times in my life, I've kind of been exposed to these teachings, but through other lineages and things like that. Like, for instance, when I was doing my yoga certification, like, I was with a legitimate yogi, and one of the things that he would always say is, God and me and God are one. And so in my mind, I'm like, that's great, you know, in my rational mind,
easy for you
to get that. Yeah, it's like you're a yogi, so yeah, you get that. And then the other thing that he said, going back to what you were saying about the responsibilities, he would also say that, he would talk in like poetry sometimes. It'd be like excuses or self-abuses. And so it's like, when we have that full accountability, we can't make the excuses anymore. And if we're making the excuses, then it's like we're not even treading water,
The
really.
excuses are our prayer. It's
Yeah.
like arguing for your limitations.
Right.
You know, and plenty of people on the planet feel very comfortable hunkering down to say, I'm a victim, I can't do this, they did it to me, everything's not working. And living in that place as justification. That's a logical place for the rational mind to go. Joey?
Well, I was just gonna say
Oh,
that
you're not done.
really, like I'm feeling a lot of things congeal just from, like, you know, how Ernest Holmes and like all the different books and stuff, just like I don't know, I'm just kind of like flabbergasted that I haven't gotten it already, but how these teachings like bring it together, you know, so
You have got it.
straightforward.
You have got it.
Well, yeah, I mean, but I'm just saying,
I hear
before,
you.
you know what I mean?
Sure,
It's
sure.
like dancing around it, just
Yeah.
dancing around it my whole life,
We're all dancing around it.
you know?
You're doing better than you think. And Joey, what do you want to say?
I marvel at it. I love that life literally, you know, in this kind of belief and just you saying, you know, taking responsibility, it's making you strong. You're evolving and you know, you don't have the crutch to sit back on, and it just makes sense. Like, why would something that is always expanding, you know, why would it want you to have something to fall back on? So it makes you, you know, move up, you know, just constantly. It's awesome.
Absolutely.
Expansion.
Sure, absolutely. I want to talk about the thing Hard Manor was talking about with the yogi. He lived in a place of knowing that he and the divine were one. There was no separation. Plenty of people on the planet have done that. Sai Baba is one of my favorites. And when he was in this realm, I loved to hear stories about Sai Baba doing these amazing things where he could manifest stuff out of nowhere. It was just wonderful. I have a real heart connection with that. And when asked why could he do those things and that other people didn't seem to be able to do, he would laugh and say, well, the only difference between you and me is that I know I'm God. You're still figuring it out. That's great, okay. So the more we accept this, the more obviously we can achieve and understand with this. That's where we're going. And everything that we've learned about this says that the presence of the divine is absolutely and completely at the point of us. The only thing that falls short is our recognition of that. So the second step is about embracing and embodying our divine nature. There's some things that I really don't resonate with. They go around in new thought circles. One is Mother, Father, God. I think I mentioned that last week or the first week, that just to me does not speak to who I am. And you know, even this thing that May came and did, the CSO, she explained it. But I encourage you, if you're going to do that kind of work with the CSO and write your letter and do all that, do it. It's a wonderful exercise. But don't think you're talking to something outside of yourself. You're not. You're not. That CSO is you. Absolutely. It's your divine nature. If you want to talk to that, your rational mind will love it, and your intuitive mind will go along for the ride saying, okay, we're just going to create all this good stuff. You know, and that's fine with me. Yes. Yes, Kate. Hi. I know it goes this way.
When I am doing spiritual mind treatment, and I come second step, and I think of all is in God, but there's a second part to that all of God is in me.
Nice.
God is infinite, but infinite in the sense that even in the smallest particle, the fullness, the completeness of God is right there. So God in its totality, whatever that totality is in me. And that's where my power comes from. That's
Excellent.
why I can speak my truth.
And that's a perfect segue to where I want to go. Let's look at we did the omnis, remember that? We omnipresence, omniscience, and omnipotence. Let's look at those from us. Are we all-knowing?
Yes. Yes.
We actually are. Now, I've been telling you about in step one that you can't possibly grasp the allness of the divine. Okay. But if you need information, you can get it. Now, your rational mind knows how to do it. Go to Google. Google can pay anything, right? That's the rational approach. But you also had this intuitive ability to simply know. If you will slow down enough and center yourself, you can know anything. I've seen people do it. This has to do with omnipresence as much as omniscience. These two apply to this model. I did a class here at one time on remote viewing. Ever heard of that?
Mhm.
Yes.
So it's the idea of receiving some code that means nothing and taking that and using your intuitive awareness and to be somewhere else in time and space, either present or another time, and to actually experience something going on in physical form at another time in another place. And we went through the class, we studied it and looked at it. And then I bought a course to do this. And in the course, it gave me coordinates for a remote viewing session. So we had the whole class do it. I gave them the coordinates, they wrote them down, they went into their state, and they drew what they saw. I think I went to Disney World or something. I completely missed the place. But one person in the class specifically drew something. I recognized it immediately. I knew what she drew, but she didn't know what it was. She just said, that's what I saw. And then we opened the envelope to see what it was. It was a wellhead in Kuwait. She drew a wellhead. I used to be in the oil field equipment business. I knew that was a wellhead. She had no idea what she was looking at. So she went to that place and saw that thing at another time in another place with coordinates that somebody somewhere else wrote and saw the thing that they were pointing to. Wow. So can you know anything? I believe you can know anything.
Yes.
Right. Joey.
I think it was in one of Greg Brennan's books, maybe in the Time
Brady,
Matrix.
yeah.
Brady, sorry. The Army used to do it all the time.
That's where
yeah.
this came from, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, the Army,
And they still do.
and they
Yeah.
know that.
And just in
CIA.
crime solving and all kind of things, they use this kind of stuff. They have people that develop this as a skill. How you can do that, it's completely intuitive. But people are able to do that. One of the fascinating things that I learned from that was that in a session, that in the writings that was part of the class, there was a man who was in a session and he began to sob. And when they finished the session and he came out, the instructor said, what happened? What caused all that emotion to come into you? He said, the place that I went was to a field of roses. I lost my ability to smell 20 years ago. I could smell the roses. I loved it. You know, isn't that amazing? Because that's information to gather. So are we really relying on our physical senses to experience physical form? Apparently not. Apparently not. In the all-knowingness of spirit, we can have whatever we need to have, experience whatever we choose to experience. My first spiritual teacher used to take us on these amazing trips where we'd be sitting in a room and he would say, find a seagull in the sky. And we were in Sydney, Australia, so there were lots of seagulls all around the Sydney Bay, or Sydney Harbor. And I would go find one. And he said, be the seagull. Whoa! And it would just kind of take off. And you could experience that. It just dazzled me, and I liked it. Some people, it made them sick, physically, like nauseous, to go through that, because it was such a different experience than being in a human body. But we relate to the human body. We have some kind of a direct connection to our body, and to the point where we think that we are our bodies, many people do, and they think that they experience life from that perspective of being the body. But we're not our bodies. We're non-physical beings. We use these bodies. So when we're recognizing doing the second step, the idea is get out of that idea of being physical. Get out of the idea that somehow you are limited by your physicality in time and space. You're not. You're only to the extent you choose to be. And then you get into all those other things like, what is it called when you show up in two places at the same time? Bilocation. You do that kind of stuff. And then there's that thing where you can travel you know, into all kinds of places, in a dream state. It's just amazing. Yeah, all that stuff. That's all about kind of detaching yourself from this absolute sense that you're your body. Valerie, do you want to say something?
No, well, it was just that when we were talking earlier about the knowing, and Jess just had a spiritual gifts festival just a few weekends or so ago, and this lady gave me this stones. One was male current of energy, one was female current energy, and she was like, I just want you to feel this, and can you feel the energy, you know? So I'm holding these beautiful white quartz in my hands, and then I saw this basket of jumbled up jewelry, you know? So I opened my eye and gave it to her. I said, what's up with this bunch of jewelry? And she's like, that's why I keep the stones. So it's just that I want to rely on that knowing more than I have in the past. You know, it's like an in and out. One time I'm like so on it, it's like crazy. And another time I'm like so off.
Yeah.
So, well, at least that's how I interpret it. So what I want to do is to develop that just so much more.
Absolutely, and you can develop it. You find exercises that'll do that. I went through an exercise with a facilitator in California one time where he broke us up into groups of 2, and our assignment was to look into one another's eyes for a moment, to just let go of everything, and then one at a time describe that person's house to them. And we were from all over the country. And I was with a guy, and I just kind of opened up to it, and I described the entrance to his home. He said, yeah, and kind of walked through it, and I went into his kitchen as I'm talking to him, and I opened his refrigerator. I said, wow, that's a lot of beer. He started laughing. He said, that's my roommate's beer. It's that refrigerator full of beer. It was like, you know, you can know stuff.
Yeah.
You just can.
Yeah.
So that's the knowing part. We've got that down. Are we all powerful? Yes. We are all powerful. Not that our bodies are all powerful. Our bodies are finite organisms. But we are not our bodies. We are divine beings. Therefore, we are all powerful to create our lives any way we see fit. You know, if you look at some of the acts of the Buddha or Jesus or any of the great avatars, they did things that didn't make sense in physical reality. But that's because they knew they weren't attached to that physical reality so much that they could only do what their bodies could do. They could do things with their minds and create all kinds of things. You know, so you are all powerful. So you're all knowing, you're all powerful. And I want to read a piece to you from this book that I've been reading called It's Up to You by Ernest Holmes. An interesting quote that I came across a few days ago. We might as well proceed with this viewpoint. We are this moment in infinite mind, which presses against us. Let me start again. Which presses against us, is in us, and is our mind. It is not only its own mind, but it is also our mind, because we are made of it. And there is nothing out of which it could make us but itself. We are an infinite mind, and infinite mind is in us. It is by this mind that we think. This mind is eternal, therefore we are eternal. This mind is complete, therefore we are complete. This mind is substance, therefore we are one in essence with all the substance of the universe. Let's stop thinking small. Let's stop relying completely on our senses to tell us who we are. Let's move into a greater state of awareness of who we are, and we'll get a different result. God is perfect. We are perfect. God is powerful. We are powerful. Whatever the divine is, we are. Not part. Don't ever say you're part of God. You're all of God, and so am I. That's a concept that sensates could not do, because you can't have everything everywhere in that mindset using your senses. But you can in your intuitive mind. So you work from that place instead. We are not an expression of the divine. And many of us say that. We think that we're an expression of God. No, we're not. An expression is a created thing. We are the divine. The divine has chosen to have an infinite number of perspectives. And that's why we can look so separate, but we're not separate. We are the presence of God functioning on planet Earth. And all of our experiences and all of our expressions are part of the mind of God, are within the mind of God. We cannot be separate from that. That's why location doesn't matter. That's why I can treat for somebody in Sri Lanka and have something happen in their lives. It doesn't matter. We have the ability to know the truth about ourselves. But it's a lifetime journey. This too, like step one, is a direction more than a destination. But the more we focus on it, the more we get. And like you were saying, Kate, when you start with that premise that the presence is complete within me in every aspect of who I am, then our awareness continues to grow. And by it growing in our awareness, then we have that as a tool to create the outcomes in our lives that we choose. This making sense? Good, good. What else do I want to tell you today? Oh, this is important, and this is not so much about treatment, but it does relate in that we as human beings with our rational mind tend to judge things. It comes very natural to us. I'm me, you're you. We notice this idea of separation between us. And by doing so, we think that we can be imposed upon by somebody else, or that we can hurt somebody else. You can't hurt somebody's body. It happens all the time in the world. But you can't hurt a spiritual being. And when we function as spiritual beings, even though we have the blessing of these bodies, it changes the whole dynamic. But the biggest part of that is that when we judge anything, when we make a judgment about something, when we find fault anywhere, we are separating ourselves from something, whatever that is, even though we're not pleased with it in the moment. It's the presence of the divine, because there's nothing else out there. There's nothing else. So when we go bad thing and we separate ourselves, we weaken ourselves. Rather than creating an understanding of that thing that happened, even if we just begin with the idea that, well, God's in there somewhere, and work from that premise. If we can't do that, if we go wrong, bad, ugly, evil, any of that stuff, we deny ourselves the power to know the truth of spirit. And the more we work those things out in our lives where we see wrongness or badness and don't go there and don't play there, the more clear we are in our divine nature. Yes, ma'am?
To help me with that, what I've done is think about things like tornadoes, earthquakes and stuff, and realize that there's nothing, that's not bad, it's just there. And it's all of one type of thing. And using that to relate back, saying that's not bad, it's just there. And to use that to things that people see as bad in their life,
There, you mentioned tornadoes and earth and that kind of thing. We have a ministry in our movement. A woman in California has a team of people, it's kind of her church. And she's a minister. And when there's a disaster, after it's passed, earthquake, tornadoes, whatever, she'll put the word out. And they'll all buy airplane tickets and they'll all go as close as they can to there. They'll meet up, get a van or two, and they'll go into those areas and start helping people clean up.
Cool.
Yeah. And she explained to me she doesn't do it for the people that have been affected by the disaster. She does it for the people that go with her, because they get this glorious sense of connection by going in and doing that and bringing their light and loving energy into those environments of this desperation and depression, and all is lost. And she said that there are always miracles when they do this. Because they come in with an entirely different mindset of what's happened. They don't make it wrong. They don't go, oh, woe is us, this is so terrible. That's what most of the people that have it happen. I mean, if you ever see what happens with with a major hurricane or a tornado, it's just total devastation. But if you fall into that abyss, it makes it so much harder to move forward. Whereas if you go, we got some work to do, and you just go do it as easy as, that sounds cavalier, but when you can take it from a different place, it changes the whole dynamic of the experience. And that's true of everything in our lives. You know, when something that seems so devastating happens, someone we love makes a transition, someone we love says, I'm out of here. Or we hear of things that of people, and it wouldn't be what we would pick for them or ourselves, but by falling into that emotional abyss, we just make it harder. I once heard of an Indian teacher, a guru, that had a great ashram and many helpers, and his number one helper had gone ill. And he was, the guru was before his class and he was teaching, and one of the monks came in and whispered in his ear that this important person in his life had passed. And he stopped the class for a moment, and he felt his sorrow. He said, okay, now let's continue the class. That's all he needed to do. And that was his way of honoring that person and not denying the feeling of loss, but not getting lost in the loss. You know, and that may seem unnatural to do that. I mean, because in our culture, you wait a year, 2 years, 3 years if someone close to you dies before you ever act like you're over it. You know, and does that really honor that person's life? I don't know, maybe we'll evolve beyond that someday. But the idea is, what are you thinking? What do you believe? What's in your consciousness that is driving your experience? And when something's painful, life's telling you, you don't need to do that. You don't need to suffer because something has happened. Your job is to know the truth of who you are no matter what. And that's what step 2 is about, is knowing the truth of who you are no matter what. Does that make sense? Valerie, you had a question or a thought?
I had a thought that I've had dear people that did pass away, you know, very important people in my life. But and I didn't cry, didn't have this feeling of overwhelming depression or sorrow or any of that. But when I lost a snake, our first pet snake, it took me forever. and I still have a little bit of, you know, left in me. And I think it's because the gift that I felt that the snake gave me was so wonderful and so awesome that, you know, that's what I think about it, the gift the snake gave me.
Nothing like reptile love.
Yeah. Yes.
Good for you. Good for you.
It's weird. You know?
All right, I think we're at a stopping point. Let's go ahead and take a break, come back, and Kate's gonna share some stuff with us.
Be a fairly brief exercise, and I'm going to give you a couple of opportunities to decide how you would like the evening to unfold before John comes back. He's upstairs doing some stuff. But actually, the really only decision you get is if you want to do small group or large group. So that's really the only decision. But it's kind of 2 decisions. Do you want to do small group? Do you want to do large group? See, it's 2 choices. But first, it's so loud. I'm giving a commencement speech tomorrow night, and I'm going to have a lapel mic on, and so I'm like, I better get used to this. It's kind of nice practice before I get to the place. So there's one thing about this book that's just amazing to me, that's different from the 97 version, is that this book has got nuggets in it that'll just knock your socks off, honestly. And if you've not gotten Barbara's CD recording of this book yet, you should pick one up back here. I think there's still some back there, isn't there? Maybe. But, or get it from someone or ask for a copy of it because there are some slight differences, and this book is just incredible. And this is one thing that's in this book that I don't believe is in the others.
Which book? What book are you talking about?
Oh, I'm talking about the original text of The Science of Mind.
Oh, okay.
The 1926 text by Holmes. which there's another one back there, which is Science of Mind, that I believe was edited in '97. So at the end of the second lesson on page 126, Holmes says, "One alone in consciousness with the infinite constitutes a complete majority." Don't you love that? I love that. That is step 2. One alone in the consciousness of the infinite constitutes a complete majority. And that's like step 2 in a nutshell. And he says, knowing this in your own thought, work in perfect peace and calm. Always expect, have enthusiasm, and have a consciousness of love. That is, a radiant feeling flowing through the personality at all times. That's step 2. When we know that the infinite is expressing as us, then we have that. And the activity we're going to do is something that I've done in my other classes, so some of you will recognize this. And it's kind of an affirmation of who we are. But it's not the third step. We haven't gone there. We're still in identification and recognition. And what we're going to do is I'm going to pass these out. And here's your choice. Do you want to work in small group or do you want to work in large group?
What does that mean to you, small group?
It'll be five people, small group.
Small?
5 is small. Or we can have the power and energy of the class. Or we can have the little power of energy of intimacy. Which would you like?
Intimacy.
Large. Intimacy.
Large intimacy.
Large intimate. Large. Let's just real quick. Large group. Everybody we're doing it. All right. Small group. Yeah. Okay. Large. So we're going to have to move a little bit in order to get done, so that we can do the offering and the closing. And I believe John has another song he would like you to listen to. So this is what I'd like you to do. Each, go ahead, take one of these. And on it, write your first recognition statement. Write a first step, a brief one. God is. Just 1 or 2 words after that. God is. What is a quality of the divine? What is something about spirit or the presence? If you're going into step 1, just a brief statement. It doesn't have to be eloquent and long. It can just be God is love. God is peace. Whatever that is for you. God is the purring of a kitten. Perhaps. What is it to you? And once you have that, think about what you wrote. And right next to it, or right under it, write, I am what you just wrote. Write that again. I am. But instead of God is, or the presence is, or the divine is, I am that same quality. Now think about that. What is that quality? If it is the purring of a kitten, that's all good. What is the purring of a kitten? What is the quality of God inherent in that little, and that Lynette licks your little hand and you're like, oh, the tongue is so cute, it's kind of rough. I want to speak like that. Whatever it is, or maybe it's a puppy, maybe it's your goldfish, maybe it was your snake. But what is it? What is the quality of the divine there that you're really looking for? Is it love? Is it tenderness? Is it a total acceptance when those animals lay in our laps and they just love? It's total acceptance. They have no judgment, right? Until we get up and get the treats and they're like, no! Well, my cats do.
Oh, mine does.
So this is what we do in my classes, and we're going to try to keep it down. And remember, this is only 1 or 2 words. It's not a complete phrase or even a real sentence. It's like God is, I am, right? Everyone have that down? So what we're gonna do is that you don't have to come to the front of the room or anything like that. We're just gonna, by volunteer, and if you don't wanna do it, you don't have to, but you're gonna say, God is, I am, and the rest of us are gonna go, yes, you are. And we're gonna affirm that for everybody. And it's an amazing thing, isn't it? We can do this, we can send you the energy, the little light beams floating through air. So it would do like this. Let's practice, I'll do it. God is expressive. I am expressive.
Yes, you are!
I love that. I do. It's like, ooh, so much energy. So again, if you don't want to share, you don't have to, but if you would like to feel the infinite being expressed as this whole room, oh, boy, it's amazing. Who would like to go? Yes.
God is infinite and ever expanding. I am infinite and ever expanding.
Yes, you are!
Yes, sure.
God is grace. I am grace.
Yes, you are!
Yes, Joey.
God is love and I am love.
Yes, you are!
Yes.
God is all flowing presence. I am all flowing presence.
Yes, you are!
Yes. Did you raise your hand or just?
Yes, I did.
Oh.
I was blessing, right? God is magnanimous. I am magnanimous.
Yes, you are!
Yes, Michael.
God is joy, I am joy.
Yes, you are!
Fee, I saw your hand.
God is power, I am power.
Yes, you are!
Yes.
God is energy, I am energy.
Yes, you are!
Yes.
God is kind, I am kind.
Yes, you are!
Yes.
God is abundant, I am abundant.
Yes, you are!
Breezy.
Spirit is all, I am all.
Yes, you are!
Tim.
God is freedom, I am freedom.
Yes, you are!
Say it, it's for you. That was them. Who are you?
Okay, I am power. Oh, God is power. I am power.
Yes, you are!
Yes.
God is creative, I am creative.
Yes, you are!
Anyone else would like to share? Yes.
God is the Alpha and the Omega, the one and the all. I am the Alpha and the Omega. I am the one and all.
Yes, you are!
Anyone else?
It works best with the spiritual jazz hands.
I do. The jazz hands are important, maybe, to move the energy.
It's the fairy fingers. Fairy fingers.
No?
Yes.
Okay.
God is the elegance that runs through and as all things. I am the elegance that runs through and as all things.
Yes, you are!
Yes, you are. No? Yes, Anina.
God is all-knowing. I am all-knowing.
Yes, you are!
Yes.
God is nature, I am nature.
Yes, you are!
Anyone? Okay.
God is awesome. I am awesome.
Good?
Yes.
Okay. So, what does that feel like to recognize it and to say it aloud. Just how do people feel with
Empowering,
that?
yes, empowering.
Increased my
Empowering?
vibration. Increased my vibration.
It increased
Yeah.
vibration?
Mhm.
What else? How else did people feel? Yes.
I enjoyed the giving of the energy, because I can feel it too in the room.
Right. Yeah, those jazz hands are important, and I think
Fairy
it's
fingers.
true. Jazz fingers? What is it?
Jazz hands, fairy fingers, whatever.
Oh, okay. How else did people, like, what else did you experience? Yes.
I just, as everybody was saying what they put down, I was accepting it for myself too, so just building and building and building, it was good, it was awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
It kept a smile on my face.
Doesn't it? Doesn't it? There's just so much energy in the room, and it's like so much love. Yes.
When everybody affirmed that, there was no doubt.
Right?
No
Right.
doubt.
I mean,
Wow.
No doubt.
that was it.
Right. That we're powerful, that we're loving, that we're expressive, that we're creative, that we're awesome. All of those things we are. And we all know it, because as Holmes says, we're one mind, right? So one alone in consciousness with the infinite constitutes a complete majority. So
What page was that again?
it's page 126. It's an amazing, amazing thing to feel, isn't it? And I told John that my thing tonight was short, and this was it.
I got more.
You can.
Let's listen to Daniel again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want me to get
I
that?
do, because that way we'll get here.
Thank you. What's that?
Wait,
Uh-oh.
What is
Mic
it?
drop.
Oh, yeah, you're probably gonna get that back to me.
Get a little fuzzy thing off the mic.
Oh.
Yeah, it's the diffuser.
Oh, no, I don't want to
That,
get it
that was
up.
a perfect thing. It demonstrated the mic was coming back to me.
No, I like. It's the other way. I need a technician.
Word technician. Is there a doctor in the house?
You are one with the technician.
can I say something?
Yes, you can.
Thank you, ma'am.
This is Jan, by the way.
So,
Hi, Jen.
Hi.
Hi, Jen.
So, what I find when I'm treating is by the time I get through step 2, I have that energy, that excitement, that enthusiasm that we were feeling.
That's the
Yeah,
place
so
to be.
That's what I like, is that I've gotten that, I've gone through step 1, the acknowledgement, the knowing, and then the I am one with Source or God. And then I've got that all revved up, like I'm right.
Work on letting go of the with. It's a natural thing to say.
Yeah, okay,
I am one as.
As. And then I'm all ready to go, I'm already like,
Yeah.
yeah, I got that going, you know,
Cool.
whatever I'm saying, and hopefully it's different every time, I got something going. And then I've got that energy that we were all feeling, that enthusiasm, and then as I go into the treatment, the rest of the steps, I'm sort of an enthusiastic treater. So, but I like that, and so that, gets me going.
I'll bet it does. You got a lot of get going in your life, don't you?
Yeah, I do,
Thank you, Jen.
I like treating.
Yeah. Michael, what do you want to say?
Well, it's just off of that, and I don't know if you are interested in talking about this, but when I heard, when you gave us the talk in kids class about spiritual non-treatment, I started trying to do this spiritual non-treatment, and what I found was, I'd spend a lot of time with step 1, and I'm like, yeah, okay, and then I go into step 2, and then I get all energized, but at that point, I'm like, what am I even thinking about moving on from here? Like, what could possibly be important?
Right.
Michael is actually an argument for that.
Yeah.
That if you've done the first 2 steps to the absolute best of your ability in the moment, what else is there? What else could you possibly do? However, there are those that think it's okay to take that amazing power of knowing and apply it to something.
Do you have any advice or wisdom on how to break out of the blissful loop.
Yeah, do it for Jan. Do your third step for Jan. You'll do that, right? So then once you're really good at doing it for her, do it for yourself.
Oh, that's good.
Oh, nice.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, because for the last week, that's the loop I've been in. I've done 1 and 2.
Right?
What a problem. This is so
I'm
good.
not saying that.
Oh, I'm teasing. I'm just being teasing here.
It's just been, just tears streaming down my face.
Yes, that's it. That's where you go. I know. You get this expansive feeling, you get goosebumps. You know, it's just like, wow. What could you possibly need to focus on when now you're recognizing that the infinite dwells at the point of view and that they're all one and the same, there's no difference. What else is there to do?
And everything I would treat for is already there anyway, so.
Right, and that's fine, and especially when you get to the place of doing treatment for other people, you know, that you want to be right there and then see them in their perfection. Yeah, it's lovely, it's wonderful. Yeah, I love this. This speaks to how you are addressing the whole thing that we're doing. When you get to that place, you go, what else is there? This is it. You know, yay, perfect. Let's hear Daniel name out again.
Do you want the lights out?
Sure, you can take the lights now, because I'm going to take us into something when that song's over. There we go. That's the truth. So if you would, just take a deep breath. If you're comfortable, keep your eyes closed, and I'm going to read you some thoughts from Ernest Holmes on this topic of identifying the presence. We are compelled to think of spirit either as apart from us or within us. If apart from us, there is no way to find it. If within us, there is no escaping the divine fact. God is in us. Realizing this indwelling God to be the one and only life, and then sensing our nature as divine, is scientific, and it will work wonders. The Spirit is both an overdwelling and an indwelling presence. We are immersed in it, and it flows through us as our very life. God is not a person. God is a presence. That presence personifies in us as persons. We are personifications of the infinite on the level of what we call the human being. As the wave is to the ocean, you are to spirit. Think about a wave. The wave is in the ocean. It is not part of it. It is integral to the life of the ocean. If you take the wave out of the ocean, it's not a wave. If you separate that idea of a wave from the ocean, it doesn't exist. They are the same thing. The entire ocean dwells in the wave. And the wave is nothing without the ocean. As the wind is to the sky, you are to spirit. How could there be a wind without an atmosphere? You cannot take a breeze out of the atmosphere. It doesn't exist without that wholeness. There are the moving elements that are invisible to us that we call wind, or breeze, or breath. They cannot be separated from the environment that they are. They do not exist without the wholeness of the atmosphere. As the wind is to the sky, you are to spirit. As the dawn is to the day, you are to spirit. Could the rising sun be separated from any other part of the solar experience? As the light beams shine from the horizon into the sky, could that exist if there was anything less than a sun and an earth revolving around it? No, it couldn't exist. There is no dawn without the sun. They are the same. They are one. As the song is to the singer, you are to spirit. How could a singer exist without a song? How could a song exist without a singer? They are integral to one another. But the song must be sung by the singer to be real. The song is not on a piece of paper. The song is alive. And it comes through the singer. They are one and the same. As the rose is to beauty, you are to spirit. Beauty is everywhere. We see it, we know it. It takes the form of a beautiful rose, or the cherub face of a newborn, or the mountain peaks, or whatever it is that we look at and feel the presence. That is beauty. It's all around us. And none of the things that we call beautiful can exist in that state without beauty. They are one and the same. As the open heart is to love, you are to spirit. We are immersed in a sea of love, the presence of the divine. We feel it at the point of our hearts. This is real. It is not imagined. When we open our heart to the possibility of our lives, we are aware of the presence of the divine, whether we know it or not. Love and an open heart are inseparable. They are proof of a living God. Spirit is in you, and you are in spirit. Spirit is you, and you are spirit. This is the truth of life. It is who you are. The divine presence that dwells in me honors the divine presence that dwells in you. They are not separate. They are one. We are one. This is the truth. And we live it with every breath, every beat of our hearts, and every thought. For God is all there is. And this is so, always and forever. And so it is. Very nice. Everybody getting a sense of this? Isn't it lovely? This is why I do spiritual mind treatment every morning. I don't know how to start my day without it. I have not been as diligent with doing my CSO letters, for those of you that know what that was. Although I am recommitted to that, but I always do treatment. Because I create my day, and there's just no sense in getting up out of bed and having a day where I'm not consciously aware that I'm creating it and taking action in that direction. So as you take on each of these steps, and you can go ahead and do treatment all you want, but we're going to spend again the next couple of weeks looking at these elements of these steps and seeing how they all fit together so beautifully. That's the work that we're doing. Judith, you want to go ahead and give us a little more light in the room? I continue to do the cards that you filled out. And if anyone hasn't done this and wants to, I'm going to ask you to go to Kate to do that. But this is everybody that's been in the first two classes that filled out one of these. So every morning when I'm doing my treatment, in fact, when I'm well into my treatment work, I pick these up and I hold them and I know the truth. And it's interesting because I don't have to know what you wrote. I just have to know that what you wrote is so in your eyes. So it's getting my energy every day, and everybody that did this took their copy of the same exact words, and you know better than anyone what it means. That's why I don't have to read what's in here to support you in it. But I want you to know that it is a special moment that I hold these and know the truth for you. We are here to do that with one another. That's the beauty of community. The idea of what we do as individuals is powerful and meaningful, but it's a greater journey. It's a more powerful journey when we do it together. So I'm very grateful to all of you for what you bring to this process and how integral you are to my fullness and to one another's fullness within this group and our larger group. And that's what we continue to do, is lift one another up. Because you cannot lift someone else up and not be lifted up. It's impossible. You can't hold someone else up in the glory of knowing who that person is and find yourself in a hole. Doesn't work. You suddenly, you have to be, to rise up with it. So don't be afraid to know these things for other people. Obviously, did I just go off?
Yes, you did.
How about that?
Battery died.
I don't know. I think it did. Well, there you go. Or must be
Energy.
done.
Energy.
So, we do have a little more business to do. We're gonna pass our baskets and work with that. Any other questions about step 2? How are you feeling about step 2?
Complete.
Good. Keep working on it. Keep finding ways to make it richer for yourself. It's an interesting dance to dance as the divine. This work that we do, that Holmes collected up and the other people of New Thought collected up, this is not new information. They call it New Thought, but it's really ancient wisdom.
Yeah.
It was taught secretly for millennia. It was taught quietly in back rooms to special people that were taken and grew up in it. I believe that's what happened to Jesus. I think that whole thing about wise men coming, they came to make a deal. They came and got that boy. And they kept him long enough for him to get it. And then they let him loose on the world. And they probably did that with lots of people. He just happened to be in the right place at the right time to make it stick. I mean, I think it cost him his life, but it was worth it because it has touched a lot of people and moved from one age to another. So he carried us into a greater understanding, and I'm very grateful for that. But what he was learning is exactly what we're learning. And how it was interpreted by people that had never heard of it before is what you get in the Gospels and the good news of that faith. You know, filtered through their sensate minds, you know? But the truth is that when you pull all that stuff away and look at the essence of it, it's the exact same stuff we teach and that we practice. I love it. It's absolutely wonderful. So thank you for being on this journey. This is delightful. So take out whatever you're going to give tonight. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I saw Joey over there at the donation station. You figure out how that worked?
Yeah, she's.
Okay, well, everybody needs somebody.
Yeah, I got it.
Thank you, Ron. Yeah. So whatever it is you're going to give tonight, hold in your hand. I'd love you to put it close to you and just let that divine energy that it is be revealed in this moment. Let's know that this giving that we do tonight blesses us. It multiplies within us. That nothing leaves us. It simply finds a new and elegant way to present itself into our lives. So our giving is for our receiving. That our receiving is for our giving. So we acknowledge whatever we got tonight, whatever this lovely dance of identification of the presence of the divine brought to us tonight. We accept that gift. We embrace it and embody it. We live from it. And we pass whatever it is that is our gift to this center tonight as a acknowledgement of that we received. And we are blessed, and life is blessed. This center is blessed, and all is well. It's a good thing we do. I'm grateful. So it is. So I know these gifts are blessed. It's more than money. It's this lovely acknowledgement of this divine path that we're on. It's this way that we exchange and we do such good things with it. And I know this money is taken and counted and deposited in a bank account. And that money is used to pay the bills of this center. But it's so much more than that. There's an elegance to it. There's an essence to it that stays here. But it doesn't just stay here, it's palpable here. but it's touching everyone that goes to our website, everyone that watches these classes. It just has so many ways of touching and changing and having its impact on the world. It's the energetic flow of spirit that we are engaged in, this lovely dance of the divine. And I'm so grateful to be doing it with everyone here. Thank you for this journey and this lovely time together, and for all that we're creating together. It's amazing, it's wonderful. It's the presence of the divine as us, and we let it be exactly that. With love and light and joy and peace, it is who we are. And so it is.
There we go.
Thank you, everyone. Have a fantastic week.